The word-bearers, originally known as the Imperial Heralds and the Iconoclasts, is the 17th Legion of the original 20 Space Marine Legions. They were the first of the 9 legions which betrayed the Emperor, becoming the first known Chaos Space Marines, pledging their allegiance to their Primarch Lorgar and to Chaos Undivided. Known for their extreme religious fervor, even before their conversion to Chaos, the word-bearers are some of the most fanatical Chaos Marines, notable for using Dark Apostles, a corrupted version of Space Marine Chaplains, to inspire their Marines and their cultist allies in battle. The Primarch of the word-bearers, Lorgar, vanished while still an infant, just like all of the other Primarchs. The earliest days, say the 17th Legion, stand apart from their brother Legiones Astartes in duty and outlook. They fought with utter devotion and a fanatical zeal. Their original recruits were drawn from the sons of defeated enemies, raised to know the crimes of their fathers and the price of the Emperor's forgiveness. Thus, while the other legions went to war with righteousness, the 17th fought with the cold fury that only the condemned and redeemed could know. While other legions took some time to acquire formal names, the 17th was named the Imperial Heralds almost immediately after their founding. This was due to their early role to deliver the Emperor's ultimatum, delivered by a lone herald in black armor with a skull-faced helmet and a winged mace: submission or destruction. Upon defeating an enemy, the Imperial Heralds would empty their libraries and records of any contents deemed heretical or sorcerous. Condemned works, individuals, and buildings would be destroyed in the name of the Imperial truth. The Imperial Heralds repeated this process all across Terra during the Unification Wars. This gave the Imperial Heralds a rarely spoken nickname among the Greater Imperium, the Iconoclasts. Eventually, Lorgar was discovered on a feudal world named Colchis, which he had eventually unified in a series of brutal religious wars in response to his visions of the Emperor's coming arrival. When the Emperor did arrive, as Lorgar had foreseen, the Primarch dropped to his knee, leading the population of his world to rejoice and worship of the Emperor as a god. At the conclusion of these festivities, the Emperor bade Lorgar take his best warriors and induct them into his Space Marine Legion, at that time known as the Imperial Heralds, and join him on the Great Crusade. Lorgar appointed trustworthy regents to rule over Colchis and devoutly complied with his father's direction. Lorgar was an unusually pious Primarch. While other legions were rapidly conquering planet after planet, the word-bearers proceeded much more slowly, as they would build temples and shrines in veneration of the Emperor, who was also deemed the god of the Imperium by Lorgar, on each newly conquered planet. All forms of blasphemy and heresy that threatened the Emperor's realm, all manner of ancient scrolls, books, artworks, and icons were burned and smashed before the advancing ranks of the Legion. In their place, vast monuments and cathedrals, all dedicated to the Emperor, were erected upon the mounds of the dead of those who had resisted conversion. The greatest chaplains of the Legion produced enormous works on the divinity and righteousness of the Emperor, and Lorgar himself delivered countless speeches and sermons, converting millions to the Emperor with his words alone. Despite being pledged to the Great Crusade for around a century, the Emperor had never once rebuked Lorgar or his legion for their zealous worship, even though such doctrine clashed with the Emperor's imperial truth. However, 43 years prior to the events of XVII, the Emperor finally became angered with their worship and brought his wrath to bear on the word-bearers. The Emperor was, of course, an atheist, and while he saw their faiths used, the imperial truth was one of totalitarian rationality. there could be no gods in his new imperium, not even himself. Thus, the Emperor ordered the Ultramarines to utterly destroy the city of Monarchia, a perfect city that was a testament to all that Lorgar and the Word-Bearers stood for, and the capital of Kur. In the ashes of the city, the entire Word-Bearers Legion gathered to be reprimanded by the Emperor, Rabut Gilliman, and Malkador, the Sigillite. In an ironic encounter, the Legion in its entirety was psychically forced to kneel in the ashes of their greatest achievement, renounce the Emperor as a god, and repledge themselves to the Great Crusade and the Emperor. This seemingly insignificant reprimand proved to be one of the most pivotal events in mankind's history. In time, Lorgar came to realize that his worship of the Emperor as a god had been false. He still, however, maintained his view that faith was central to the human psyche, and that it was still plausible that his views could be validated. His search began by investigating the old faith of his homeworld, which in his certainty that the Emperor was a god, he had destroyed during the first purge of the Brotherhood prior to being discovered by the Emperor. He returned to Colchis to seek the answers he so desperately needed, and sought the counsel of Magnus the Red, the wisest among the Primarchs. Encouraged by Erebus and Corphaeron, who had in truth already fallen to worship of the ruinous powers, Lorgar came to realize that all of the belief systems featured in countless other human cultures across the galaxy shared a common origin and underlying message. He believed that because all the countless legends of divinity from so many disparate cultures all agreed on other powers that exist beyond the veil, the human species' most natural instinct could not be false. Thus, he took the pilgrimage, a mythological journey to the place where gods and mortals meet in an attempt to discover the universal truth of the universe and enlighten humanity and his father. The Word-Bearers Legion rejoined the Great Crusade as a front for the pilgrimage and scattered itself across the stars, bringing more worlds into compliance than any other legion in the last 50 years of the Crusade. Lorgar himself joined the 1,301st Expedition Fleet and eventually came to Cadia, where they received validation for their theories that all of the old faiths across the galaxy shared similar origins and thus shared a universal truth. Ingethel, a native of Cadia, was anointed by the gods as Lorgar's guide in revealing the primordial truth, and undertook a ritual to do so, which elevated her to the ranks of the demonic as Ingethel the Ascended. Ingethel the Ascended led the serrated sun chapter of the Word-Bearers into the Great Eye of Terror, where the failure of the Eldar Empire was witnessed firsthand. Ingethel informed the Word-Bearers that the Eldar failed and suffered the fall because at the moment of their ascension, they were unable to accept the primordial truth. They gave birth to a god of pleasure and promise, yet they felt no joy. Their new god awoke to find its worshippers abandoning it out of ignorance and fear. Thus was the endless storm of the Great Eye formed, an echo of the birth cries of the Eldar's new god. The nature of the primordial truth was revealed to the Word-Bearers in the ashes of the Eldar Empire. They learned that for humanity as a species to survive, they must not commit the same sins the Eldar did. They must instead accept chaos. The pilgrimage ultimately proved that the Emperor's imperial truth was in fact a lie, and that gods truly did exist. Secretly pledging themselves to new dark gods, the Word-Bearers hid their true allegiance for the next 4 decades. Lorgar and the Word-Bearers spent the remaining years of the Great Crusade attempting to enlighten humanity about the universal truths of the universe, and began the long process of sending their forces throughout the rest of the Astartes legions to establish warrior lodges and subvert them from within. Through this subterfuge, they eventually managed to sway several Primarchs to their cause, the most notable being Horus Lupercal. Meanwhile, the Word-Bearers avoided suspicion by loyally waging a great many campaigns, soon becoming one of the most militarily successful legions in the Crusade, and seemingly making up for their past failures. In command of the second largest legion after the Ultramarines, Lorgar's campaigns against predominantly human empires became vicious, brutal, and seemingly spiteful, perhaps a way for the Legion to vent its hidden frustrations. When it became clear that humanity could not be enlightened without bloodshed whilst it remained shackled to the lies of the Emperor, Lorgar and Erebus helped orchestrate the corruption of Horus himself, initiating the Horus Heresy. After the drop site massacre on Istvan V, the Word-Bearers abandoned all their past pretenses of loyalty. They openly preached the primordial truth, changed their armor to crimson red, and utilized demonically possessed Space Marines known as the Gal Vorbak. At the time of the Horus Heresy, it is estimated that the Word-Bearers Legion numbered some 150,000 combat troops. As the heresy unfolded, the Word-Bearer ship Furious Abyss set off on a warpath for Ultramar right after its construction was completed on the Jovian moon of Thule. The Legion had grown an intense animosity for the Sons of Guilliman thanks to their role in their punishment, and sought to return the pain on their dominion. The Furious Abyss's first kill was the Ultramarines ship Fist of Macragge, as it was heading in for repairs in the Vangelis spaceport. The astropaths of the Fist of Macragge managed to send out a warning, ultimately received as a very powerful psychic scream at the Vangelis spaceport. Seeing visions of Macragge and the impending terror, Captain Cestus, fleet commander of the Ultramarines, quickly gathered a force of ships at the main Vangelis hub of Corralis. He managed to find 7 ships: the Wrathful, which Cestus commandeered and commanded from, and her escorts, the Fearless, the Ferox, the Ferocious, the Fireblade, along with the Thousand Suns ship Waning Moon. Captain Vorloff of the ship Boundless also requested to join Captain Cestus, and was accepted. The fleet pursued the Furious Abyss and battled with it, suffering heavy casualties. All ships but the Wrathful and Fireblade were destroyed, ending when the Furious Abyss entered the warp to continue its journey to Ultramar. The Wrathful and Fireblade made the transition as well, but the Furious Abyss deployed a psionic mine which disturbed the warp, causing the Fireblade's Gela field to fail, and the ship was torn apart by the forces of the Immaterium. When the Word-Bearers launched their attack against the Ultramarines, the strike against Calth was led by Lorgar's greatest champion, the former Master of the Faith, Cor Pharaon. He swore to utterly destroy the planet and was very nearly successful. From his personal battle barge, now renamed Infidus Imperator, Cor Pharaon directed a full-scale invasion of the Calth system. Calth's 3 sister planets were all destroyed, massive geonuclear strikes ripping them apart at the core. Its once gentle sun was laced with deadly metals and substances that increased the star's radiation output tenfold. Within a century after the heresy's end, the final elements of Calth's atmosphere were burned off, and the world left airless, its populace forced to live in gigantic underground caverns. Meanwhile, the ground war on Calth was devastating and horrific. The Ultramarines were shocked by the millions of cultists the Word-Bearers used as human shields, and disgusted by the hordes of demons they unleashed. The Word-Bearers, in turn, had underestimated the tenacity and resolve of their foe. In the end, Lord Cor Pharaon was defeated when reinforcements from Macragge drove the Word-Bearers from the surface of Calth. Corferon retreated all the way to the Maelstrom, a turbulent region of the galaxy where the immaterium of chaos seeps through into the material realm of the universe. Meanwhile, Lorgar led his own Shadow Crusade in conjunction with the World Eaters, hoping to create a gigantic warp storm to cut off Ultramar from Terra. Following the Shadow Crusade, the Word-Bearers were ordered to muster at Ulanor for Horus's planned drive on Terra. By this point, Lorgar had come to view Horus as weak for resisting the embrace of the gods and secretly planned to usurp him as War Master. Nonetheless, Lorgar, Zardu Lyak, and a small force journeyed into the Webway to find Fulgrim under the guise of returning him to the war. After successfully binding Fulgrim with his true name, Lorgar planned to use him in a coup to dispose of Horus. However, in the end, Lorgar's treachery was exposed, and the plan fell apart. Lorgar was exiled from Horus's sight, but 5,000 word-bearers under Zardu Lyak agreed to follow the War Master to Terra. While Lorgar and Lyak went separate ways, a force of word-bearers led by Zedak Mordekar would aid the Sons of Horus in the recapture of their home planet. Then, the word-bearers under Lyak took part in the Siege of Terra. In the end, Horus was defeated, and the legions of Chaos were forced to flee. Shortly after the defeat at Terra, the word-bearers were defeated in the Loyalist retaliatory campaign known as the Bitter War, and their homeworld of Kolchis was destroyed. During the Great Scouring, the word-bearers and other Chaos-aligned remnants were forced to retreat to the Eye of Terra, and there they have remained for 10,000 years, returning to the Imperium to raid, pillage, and destroy. From the daemon world of Sicarus, Lorgar watches over his legion and orchestrates the vast corruption from within that the Imperium suffers at the hands of his cults and covens. Unlike many of the other traitor legions, the Word-Bearers have remained a unified, if loosely organized, military force, the main ruling body of which is known as the Dark Council, which rules in Lorgar's absence. From the two primary bases of the Legion, Sicarus and the factory world of Galmec, located within the Maelstrom, the Word-Bearers launch twisted wars of faith against the Imperium. On each world they attack, they incubate a seed of heresy that will one day contribute to their ever-expanding web of cults. Sometimes, however, this brings them into competition with the efforts of the Alpha Legion. Though the Alpha Legion and the Word-Bearers have united several times to take part in the Black Crusades of Ezekiel Abaddon, they are more usually in states of bitter division and rivalry. However, these things are but distractions, as their war against the Imperium of Man is total, and they do not intend for it to end until every icon of the Emperor lies shattered at their feet. In the present, the Word-Bearers do not worship Chaos gods individually. Instead, they are venerated and regarded as a dark pantheon of Chaos gods. The Sons of Lorgar view those who limit their worship to a single Chaos god with contempt, and are partially at odds with the Emperor's children for their decadence. Word-Bearers rely on demons as shock troops, meat shields, and as the bulk of their armies. Their elite Chaos Space Marines are used to accomplish vital tasks. The Word-Bearers have been known to have a massive cultist base and have used cultists and insurgents since the Great Crusade. However, unlike the Alpha Legion, the primary use of cultists is as cannon fodder and distractions. The Word-Bearers are notable for being the only traitor legion who still have a core of chaplains, now known as Dark Apostles. The Word-Bearers follow the words of their Dark Apostles with total faith in battle. The Dark Apostles divine through many ways how a battle is to be fought and won, and the warriors of the host obey unquestioningly. A host may also be led by a Chaos Lord. with the same devotion from his troops should he speak as the voice of Lorgar. Under fearsome influence, should he be titled Master of the Union. Before battle, the word-bearers gather in ritual prayer, chanting hymns and cult doctrine to affirm their faith in the power of chaos. Such battle chants, which may predate the word-bearers' fall to chaos, include the Martio Imprimis and Martio Secundus. Often these chants will be answered, and it is common for the word-bearers to fight alongside demonic entities. Alongside the Black Legion and Death Guard, the word-bearers are one of the 3 traitor legions that did not fracture in the aftermath of the Horus heresy. The legion is ruled centrally from the Dark Council of Sicarus. This evil priesthood enforces a strict regime of worship of the Chaos Pantheon upon their fellow word-bearers, and are also highly likely to be found leading the legion in battle. Each is gifted an army of their own, known as a host. The numbers vary, with the smallest typical size roughly analogous to that of a Space Marine company, and the largest exceeding the manpower of a Space Marine chapter. The organizational makeup of each host differs wildly as well, and can change depending on the whims of the Dark Apostle that leads it. Often they will suddenly alter the hierarchy of their host for reasons known only to themselves. These changes often result in seemingly unwieldy or tactically inflexible formations. The word-bearers themselves accept these changes without question. The largest known host numbered over 2,000 Chaos Marines at its peak. The size of this force required that the Dark Apostle be served by 2 chief lieutenants, his first acolyte, and a champion, entitled the Coryphos. The role of the Coryphos is to be the intermediary between the Dark Apostle and his host. This allows the Dark Apostle to be seen primarily as a spiritual and distant figure. Furthermore, the Coryphos is essentially in charge of the majority of tactical decisions on the battlefield, freeing the Dark Apostle to commune with the darker powers, fuel the hatred of the host, and ponder strategic matters. Additionally, the host possessed an icon bearer and an elite unit of over 200 Terminators known as the Anointed. The most commonly occurring structure is that roughly equating to a Space Marine company, with the host broken down into units of about 12 warriors. Each is commanded by a champion of the word-bearers, who strives to become as devout a war leader as the Dark Apostle, in the hope of one day being chosen to succeed him on the occasion of his death. As for their legion's ranks, during the Great Crusade, the gene seed of the word-bearers was seen as stable and easily mass-produced, making the word-bearers one of the largest Space Marine legions even before the coming of Lorgar. By the time of the heresy's outbreak, they were second in size only to the Ultramarines. However, those implanted with word-bearers' gene seed were marked by a dogged, unquestioning belief and stubbornness that bordered on insane fanaticism. This has been described as an inherent flaw that made them easily corruptible by chaos. They were also said to possess the handsome and serene features of their Primarch Lorgar. Over 10,000 years inside the Eye of Terror, much of the word-bearer's gene seed has become corrupted, and many of its members now sport mutations. However, like other Chaos Legions, notably the Death Guard, this is seen as a blessing by the Chaos Gods. In the 42nd millennium, the Legion is currently raging across the galaxy in conjunction with Abaddon's Black Crusade. Lorgar is unaccounted for, as rumors have him holding out in the Eye of Terror, and others still posit he is being hunted by his vengeful brother, Corvus Corax. The great irony of their fate is, of course, their devotion to the Emperor being vindicated. Once they alone knelt before their father as a god, and now all of the uncorrupted human species does so via the imperial cult developed in his absence. In perhaps the greatest tragedy of the heresy, the Emperor's intolerant arrogance lost him his most loyal sons, and the Legion's blind faith doomed them to an eternity of service to a dark pantheon, marching endlessly to war to kill their former god. Thank you for listening to this entry from the Warhammer 40,000 Lexicanum.